Welcome back. You're still watching Sunday Live, and it's time for State of the Race. And our guest tonight is Tom Wolf, Chief Researcher from TIFA Research. He'll be telling us a bit about the observations from the race. But now it's 43 days to the general election, or if you like, 1 month, 13 days to that important date that over 20 million registered voters will be moving to their polling stations to choose who will be their leaders for the next 5 years. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has finalized the formal nomination of candidates for the election. The IBC has also completed the cleanup of the register of voters, and shortly the crucial process of preparing election materials, including the printing of ballot papers, is just about to, if not in progress. Welcome to State of the Race. My name is Sam Gituko, and let's begin with how we are. And that is to do with, it is official, the presidential ballot paper will be the shortest in the country's 30-year multi-party elections. It is an all-male presidential candidates list, with William Ruto cleared on a UDA ticket. Of course, he chose his close ally Rigathi Gachagua to be his running mate. On his fifth attempt, Raila Odinga is running on Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition political party, and for running mate, Raila picked one of his political struggle associate, that is Martha Wangari Karua. Then comes Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya, who is running on the Roots Party, going for the presidency for the very first time. Wajakoya has picked Justina Wamai as his running mate. The fourth presidential candidate, you may know him, is one David More Wahiga, running on a Gano Party ticket. For his running mate, Wahiga picked Ruth Musheru Mutua. Now, earlier on in the week, there was a report that was published by the IEBC, that is the audited register of voters by the IEBC. And of course, we know that the tally is in. Kenya now has 22.12 million registered voters, and this means that there's an additional 2.5 million voters on the 2017 poll register. This is what the numbers are, and you're looking at this. Rift Valley region has 5.34 million voters. This is from 14 counties that comprise that region. Central Kenya has 3.1 million registered voters. It's about 5 counties. Nyanza region has 3.1 million registered voters, and this is inclusive of Kisii and Nyamira. But of course, if you have to look at out of that, the counties of Siaya, Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Migori, which may be considered as Raila Odinga's political bedrock, have 2.16 million registered voters. We will shortly see how that compares to Ruto's backyard. In the meantime, Nairobi City County remains the largest single electoral unit by voter population, posting 2.41 million registered voters, and this is a crucial county, especially for the presidential race and the balance of power between the two leading political formations in the country. In 2017, for instance, Odinga secured 50.8% of the vote in Nairobi against Kenyatta's 48.5%. The 6 coastal counties have a total of that is 1.96 million registered voters. You're talking about 6 counties in that region. In Ukambani's 3 counties, they contribute 1.69 million registered voters, and the Upper Eastern region, comprising Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Marsabit, Isiolo, and Embu counties, have a total of 1.59 million registered voters. The Northeastern region of Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera contribute the smallest number of voters at 626,000, and this could be a tiebreaker in a tight presidential contest. Let's now look deeper at some of those numbers guided by previous elections and, of course, voting patterns. The 10 counties of Mount Kenya, comprising Kiambu, Murang'a, Nyeri, Laikipia, Nyandarua, Kirinyaga, Meru, Embu, Tharaka Nithi, and Nakuru County, have a total of 5.77 million registered voters. In the past 2 general elections, the region voted as a bloc with an average high of 93% for Uhuru Kenyatta in the August 2017 general election. The rich vote basket, or rather the vote-rich basket, may explain why the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya campaigns have made several trips to this region. There's another region that is of interest, that is some counties in the Rift Valley, that is from North Rift and some parts of South Rift. And I'm talking about Nandi, Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Kericho, and Bomet counties, which can be termed as DP William Ruto's political backyard. They have a total of 2.2 million registered voters. In August 2017, you may want to know the 6 counties voted overwhelmingly for the Uhuru ticket at an average of 87%. Another region to take keen interest on is the Western region. Of 5 counties, including Trans Nzoia County, they have a total of 2.61 million registered voters. And in 2017, the region predominantly voted for Raila Odinga at 77.1%. the two leading formations have been in this region seeking to jostle the vote from each other. We will later look at some battlegrounds informed by recent elections and a recent opinion poll. But in the meantime, there's something that is brewing that I want us to look at first by watching a video clip of some images that came from the northern part of the country. These are images on chaos witnessed in Marsabit County on Thursday. These involved two local political factions that are both allied to the Azimio la Umoja movement. A tussle between the supporters of current Governor Mohamed Mohamud, vying on a UDM ticket, and those of National Treasury CS and first Governor of Marsabit, Ukur Yatani, who heads the UPIA party. Governor Mohamud is facing 5 other candidates, including Pius Yatani of UPIA party, Chachuganya of KANU, Wario Guyo of Jubilee, and others are Kelo Harsama of UDA and Bernard Ore of ANC, both of which parties are in the Kenya Kwanza movement. Now, a day after these events, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Council met to deliberate on strategies to deal with the sibling rivalry. The Secretary General of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, that is Junet Mohamed, explained.
Kila kiti itashindwa na mtu mmoja. Hakuna kiti ambaye washindi watakuwa wawili. Lazima hata tukiwawacha wote, wewe 5, 6, mwishowe mtu mmoja ndio atashinda. Kuna sehemu, kuna wale wanang'ang'ania ni vyama tanzu ya Azimio, lakini kuna opposition, wale tunashindana naye pia wako na candidate. Hiyo ndio tunataka leo kuiangalia na kupiga msasa ili tukue na uhakika ya kwamba tutashinda.
All right, that is Junet Mohamed there. Let us look at some of those key races that are causing anxiety in the two leading formations. For instance, this is Kisii County, where the Azimio la Umoja movement has 3 leading governor contenders: Simba Arati of ODM, Professor Sam Ongeri of DAPK, and Chris Obure of the Jubilee Party. They all want the seat, but are facing Ezekiel Machogu of UDA. In another county, that is the neighboring Nyamira County, we know that the Azimio la Umoja team has candidates running on partner parties. That is, current Governor Amos Nyaribo is on a UPA ticket, Timothy Bosire on ODM, Ben Momanyi on a Wiper ticket, Mwancha Okioma on Jubilee, and Ruben Marwanga on KANU ticket, all under Azimio. On the Kenya Kwanza side, there are 2 contenders. Let me just get that right. 2 contenders, that is Joseph Ombasa of ANC, Walter Nyambati of UDA. Again, to insist, they come from the Kenya Kwanza team. In Vihiga County, the Azimio la Umoja team has 2 candidates again. The incumbent governor, Wilbert Otichilo, is defending his seat on an ODM ticket, while current Senator George Khaniri wants the seat on a UDP ticket, an Azimio affiliate party that is led by Cyrus Jirongo. The Kenya Kwanza team has only 1 candidate, and that is Alfred Agoi of ANC, a party that is led by Musalia Mudavadi, one of the co-principals within Kenya Kwanza coalition. In Kajiado, the governor's race gets interesting because the current governor, Joseph Ole Lenku, and former governor David Ole Nkedienye switched places, with Lenku defending his seat on an ODM ticket, while Nkedienye is seeking a return to office through a Jubilee ticket. They are both in Azimio la Umoja movement. They are facing Kajiado South MP Kato Ole Metito, the sole candidate from Kenya Kwanza. To something else, that is the neighboring county of Narok. The governorship race is clearer for both coalitions, but the Senate race, Senator Alidam Olekina is running on ODM and he's facing internal competition from Kilgoris MP Gideon Konchela, running on a Jubilee Party ticket. They both face current Governor Samuel Ole Tunai, who is going for the Senate seat on a UDA ticket. We get nearer the coast, or in the coast, Kwale raised that, the Azimio la Umoja movement has a task to tell apart between among 3 candidates: Hamadi Boga of ODM, Dena Gereza of KANU, and former Cabinet Minister Chirao Mokwere of Viper. They are facing 2 candidates, that is Fatuma Achani, who is running on UDA. She is the current Deputy Governor of Kwale, and then there is Wanchai Lunganzi from the Pamoja African Alliance. And now, Tom, if you may help us talk about this, because we have seen similar situations, especially in 2017. The National Super Alliance at some point had several candidates for the same seats, and it indeed went ahead to cost them seats, whether it's at the governorship level or the parliamentary seats. Is there anything that we know that could have that could inform a decision to see how to reduce the number of candidates, and how does that even affect the presidential vote?
Thank you, Sam. Well, as we heard a moment ago from Junet Mohamed, they seem absolutely committed on the Azimio side to reduce these multiple candidates to just one. I would not want to be one of the party officials having to make that decision. I recall, as you were talking, I think it was the parliamentary race in Emuhaya in 2007, where there were 28 candidates, and the winner was Kenneth Marende. He won with only 18% of the vote, but that's because there were so many candidates. How you actually decide who or which party should field the candidate, as I said, is very complicated. One issue, obviously, is access to the political party's fund, which is based on the number of elected leaders you have. So some of these other parties that don't have the presidential candidate, that is in Azimio, only ODM does, and of course in Kenya Kwanza it's only UDA, they have to, I think, in order to keep their support for the presidential and deputy presidential candidates intact, they have to give some room for these smaller parties. But as I say, how they're going for their candidates, how they're going to do it, I don't know. Just one example.
Right.
I remember hearing ODM Secretary General Edmund Sifuna a month or two ago defending the use of polls for selecting candidates. Now, the one issue is, do you survey everyone in that electoral unit or just the members of your party? Now, obviously, to pick a single candidate, it's got to be everyone that you think is going to vote. Predicting voter turnout is tough. And he made reference to 2 surveys that were done before that Msambweni by-election, saying that that proved that you can use polls to find out who's the most popular candidate. When in fact, both Radio Africa and TIFA, where I worked, we showed a couple weeks before that Msambweni by-election that ODM Omar Bogo would win, but the independent Faisal Badr won in double digits. So because of, there was 40% turnout. Presumably in the general election there'll be more turnout. All I'm saying, I'm not trying to convince people not to give us work to do polls, to help them pick candidates, but let's not worship those kinds of figures without knowing really the situation on the ground.
All right, and Tom, we'll get more from you on how those numbers inform conversations in the country. But now let's return to the presidential campaign trail, where we have seen Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga already unveiled his manifesto for the election on Monday, the 6th of June, a manifesto that largely focused on promises to revive the economy, protect the vulnerable in the society, promote productivity in the counties with a one county, one product, one industry mantra. Odinga's comment on plans to revive the country's textile industry fell into controversy. Listen.
Our textile industry was killed through liberalization. When then they brought mitumba, it killed all our textile industries. Our people are only wearing clothes coming from outside the country. You've been worn by people who are dead.
Right, and Odinga's opponents in Kenya Kwanza have taken him to task over his clothes of dead people. Remark.
Ati wametuambia biashara ya mtumba ati wanauza nguo ya maiti. Lakini mwaka huu watajua hawajui. Watawacha madharau. Kama wewe ulizaliwa kwenu unavaa suit, usidharau sisi tulivaa mitumba kwa sababu hata na sisi ni Wakenya.
Now, the Mitumba matter generated some controversy, forcing Raila and his running mate Martha Karua to go on their defense. Odinga met Mitumba traders from the Gikomba market, while Karua met a section of residents in Nakuru. Listen.
Msiwe na hali ya wasiwasi yoyote. Kwanza ya kwamba mitumba itapigwa marufuku, hapana. Itapigwa marufuku.
Ni choices tunaleta kwa watu. Iko yule ataendelea kuuza mtumba, iko yule atachoose sasa kuuza nguo mpya. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni propaganda.
So here's the thing that we need to note. The textile industry, of course, started taking a hit. In the 1980s, the government was in need of more revenue and chose to buy off private textile companies like Kisumu Cotton Mills, Kikomi. Government took over running, or rather turning the companies into parastatals, but as a result of mismanagement, they didn't take long before government chose to sell them back to the private sector. Now, around the same time, the government allowed importation of second-hand clothes into the country with tax incentives. They were cheaper and offered a higher variety for both consumers and traders. It's been decades now, and the cotton industry is struggling to get back on its knees. Let's get back to the conversation of running mates. And the two major presidential candidates picked theirs on the 15th of May for Ruto and 16th May for Odinga.
History is calling us to close the gender gap in our country. History is calling on us to reciprocate the struggles and fidelity of our women. History is calling on us to produce our first woman deputy president.
I am ready to work as your deputy and to support you in our shared ideals.
All right, it's been more than a month on the campaign trail and the dynamics of the choices have been evident, introducing the gender factor into the elections. DP William Ruto on Friday 10th of June signed a women charter here in Nairobi, committing to, among other things, allocate 50% of the cabinet to women. This would mean that it would be a 50-50 gender balanced cabinet should he win the election.
I commit on behalf of Kenya Kwanza Alliance that we shall allocate 50% of all cabinet positions to the women of Kenya. On behalf of Kenya Kwanza Alliance, do hereby commit to actualize the 2/3 gender principle. Women-owned enterprises will automatically qualify for the LPO financing through the Hustler Fund.
And so, will gender be a determining factor on how Kenyans vote in 43 days' time? Both the Odinga and Ruto campaigns are competing on what's the better approach.
What we saw with the Women Charter is an obvious reaction to the fact that Azimio One Kenya Alliance actually put a woman on the ticket. And it is also a fact that out of the 4 teams that were cleared to run for the presidency, it is only the deputy president that has refused to acknowledge that women have a space in terms of the top leadership of the country. All the other 3 have running mates as women.
You know, when we talk about mainstreaming women, Sam, you know, it cannot be answered by giving one position to one single woman in Kenya. While that may be good, it will not answer the question of all the women. We have looked into the vulnerable groups of women, the single mothers, widows, older women who may not have access to resources. All those questions have been answered in that charter.
Well, a very interesting conversation. And Tom, just in a short sentence, is there any evidence that the gender factor is an issue in this election?
Based on the last survey did, which is now about a month ago, just a couple of days after they were announced, we didn't see any change in the distribution of vote between male and female, but we hope that in our next survey that should be completed soon, we'll have a more concrete answer to give you. So let's wait for that.
Okay, we'll be waiting. But you might be wondering, what are the other presidential candidates doing? Let's begin with Professor George Wajackoyah, who has gained quite some traction on the social media for his unconventional election pledges, and of course was recently in Kirinyaga popularizing his bid. He promises to execute the corrupt.
Kuna waizi katika Kenya hii. Hiyo bangi iko kitu inaitwa nini, hemp. Hiyo hemp inatengeneza nini? Kamba. Hao waizi wa pesa za serikali, waizi wa KEMSA, wale majudges waizi ambao wamefanya kesi zinaenda namna yote tutanyo. Nyonga hao. Nyonga waizi.
Is that legal? The Agano Party candidate David Mwaura Wahiga is also going big on the corruption question. He spoke while on a campaign tour of Kiambu County. Let's listen.
We shall effect the law. The law is not thoroughly effected. That's number 1. Number 3, in fighting corruption, we have lacked determination and resolve. When we stop where our money has been getting lost, we bring determination, resolve. We bring straightforwardness. Let me tell you, my brothers, the cost of living will go down.
Now, Mwaura Wahiga has also asked for enhancement of his security. In a letter to Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, Mwaura fears that for his outspoken anti-corruption agenda, where he is going for, quote, big fish, corruption may fight back, and therefore he needs a security. In a press statement on the 23rd of June, Mwaura wants more security officers beyond what he calls just 2 bodyguards, who he claims have not had a day off for a period of 3 weeks. Mwaura is threatening to go to court should his requests not be honored. Let's now turn to some of the key races that I want us to look at this evening, and we begin here in Nairobi. The governorship race beats the two leading political formations, Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party, and of course there are others. UDA's Johnson Sakaja was this week, or Sunday last week, cleared by the IEBC Dispute Resolution Committee to remain on the ballot. This was after nearly 2 weeks of controversy following the revocation of his recognition certificate, of his degree certificate that he says he got from Tim University in Uganda. Sakaja has been to the DCI to record a statement over the authenticity of his degree certificate, and CUE has since withdrawn its revocation against Sakaja, meaning he is a free candidate to the ballot unless the matter is proven otherwise. Listen.
On Friday, the DCI officers spent the whole day at CUE. Then they all came out with the same letter. So we've also asked these institutions to agree who wants what, so that we can answer them, because it's the same government. So that so this is a summons by the law from CUE. I think it was in media. We have not received anything formal. Once they send it, we are ready to abide by each and every process. We have nothing whatsoever to hide.
So this is Polycarp Igathe, and after all the drama involving Sonko, it is now down to numbers. Tifa Research released a poll that shows Sakaja ahead of Azimio la Umoja's Polycarp Igathe with 40% against 32%. And of course, we know that there are undecided voters, according to the poll, that amount to 28%, and this could be critical in tilting the election in whichever way. Of course, you know, the registered voters are 2.41 million. And let's now engage Tom here, because we saw that the Tifa poll is showing that Raila Odinga, the popularity of Raila Odinga in Nairobi is 50%, William Ruto is 25%, but you look at the candidates, the governorship candidates from their respective formations, 40 versus 32%. How do you explain that?
Well, maybe I should begin, Sam, by asking you a question, and that is, can you tell me what would be the policy differences between Governor Sakaja and Governor Igathe? And I'm not going to force you to answer, because basically you can't tell. Because our political parties in Kenya do not have clearly distinct policies, let alone ideologies. They're basically appealing to the same voters in the same way as the presidential candidates are, in trying to convince them that they'll do more to address mainly their economic suffering. So we don't have any clear differences at the policy level. Now, just to give you 3 examples or sub-answers to your question. Why is Sakaja more important than Igathe when you said that Raila Odinga is more popular than Ruto in Nairobi? First of all, perhaps if Mr. Igathe had not resigned as governor after 6 months, he would be the governor today, given the impeachment that was brought down on the head of Mbuvi Sonko. And he would be much better known to Nairobians, because whereas between 2013 2017, Bwana Sakaja was an MP and a quite prominent one in Nairobi, very few people had ever heard of Polycarp Igathe. Second, to underscore your point, in 2018, a survey was done ranking first and second term senators. Among those who were serving their second term, Mutula Kilonzo Jr. scored the highest. And this is without any data from Makueni County to remove that bias. And among the first-term senators, Bwana Sakaja scored the highest, again, with all the Nairobians removed from the data. So he was already, in this second year of his first term as senator, quite popular. Finally, we found in our last Tifa survey on that Nairobi poll you mentioned, that 22% of those who said they would vote for Raila Odinga as president said they would vote for Sakaja as governor. So it's clear that for whatever reasons, party differences don't make that much difference. But I'll just end by asking another question for you, and that is, if Bwana Sakaja needs some Raila voters in order to defeat Igathe, when he's campaigning around Nairobi over the next 43 days, how often will he also tell people to vote for his presidential candidate? Because that might cost him some votes from people who are going to be voting for Raila, but that's up to him.
All right, and of course you continue to pursue that. Those are not the only candidates in Nairobi. The others, Agnes Kaguri, an independent, Kenneth Nyamwamu from UPA, and there are 5 others, because in total there are supposed to be 9. Now, my system is not cooperating. Cleophas Kio from Fort Kenya, Dennis Kode from LDP, Nancy Mwadime from Usawa kwa Wote, Esther Thairo from independent or an independent candidate, and Herman Grewal from Safina. Let's now focus on another race, that is Kiambu County, where we know that one in the Senate race, this is Karungo Athangwa, who is out of the race. This is after UDA's Karungo Athangwa was barred from running for having been removed from office by the Kiambu County Assembly in October 2019, when he served as the County Executive Committee member in charge of youth affairs during Governor Fernando Ititu's era. In the meantime, UDA party is yet to declare whether it will pick a replacement for Thangwa or keep waiting on him to exhaust his fighting chances. There are others that are in the race. So far, 7 of them: George Mara from Jubilee, John Mugwe, an independent candidate, Mashelo Ikenda from Chama cha Kazi, Alice Gatheka from Tujibebe Party, George Njoroge from Safina, Joseph Kamau Usawa kwa Wote, and Kigunda Makena from KNC Party. Now, let's focus on the hits and misses of the week, and we begin with a miss. We begin with former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, who has lost his bid to contest for the Mombasa County governorship seat. He was impeached in Nairobi in December 2020. Wiper Party has been accorded the opportunity to pick a replacement of Sonko in the Mombasa race. Another miss that we know is what happened earlier on Sunday last week. That is the violence witnessed on Jacaranda grounds in Embakasi. The standoff between supporters of MP candidates Francis Muriithi of UDA and ODM's Babu Owino have split the political space. Accusations and counter-accusations have rent the air over who exactly was responsible. Those are the images from that. And on the hit of the week goes to Martha Karua, the Azimio deputy presidential candidate, who has been receiving a series of direct endorsements this week. A section of Muslim leaders met Karua and endorsed the Raila Karua ticket. Listen.
We believe, Your Excellency, your track record and commitment to justice will find the strategic partner in the Muslim Ummah in our quest for establish a just Kenya for all of us.
The introduction of Martha's name within the Azimio discussion gave us fresh thought. What will she contribute to this new coalition that is being formed?
Then Karua's learned friends followed suit.
People from this honorable profession in this jurisdiction cannot live without the implementation of an honorable constitution, for which we all fought and which now is the duty of our profession, the duty of advocates, the duty of senior counsel, and now hopefully the duty of the Vice President of Kenya.
A quick one on this, Tom. Do these endorsements in boardrooms, hotels, meetings, do they count versus meeting the people where they are?
Well, again, this is something that would have to be explored through research after the fact. So I can't be very certain about this, but I would say in general, such endorsements do not hurt unless they were not taken by the leaders with full consultation, or at least sufficient consultation, so you get a breakaway group of members or other leaders who then call the media and come out with a statement and denounce or deny being involved in this sort of crowning.
Okay.
But I think, as I said before, in a situation where parties don't really have any ideological or clear policy differences, I think, as we just saw in the case of Martha Karua, that getting endorsements from organizations that do have a certain profile in the country certainly will help to define the flavor or the content of what her candidacy and that of her running mate Raila Odinga means.
Okay. All right. So it's now time for key battlegrounds. According to a recent poll by Infotrack, Raila Odinga has an edge, a slight edge of 42% popularity as of 27th of May against William Ruto's 38%. And of course, this doesn't win anyone an election because you need to be 50% plus one vote. And out of these, Raila Odinga leads in some 20 counties which were considered by Infotrack as strongholds. Ruto has 16 counties as his strongholds, but the other battlegrounds, the counties, a total of 11 of them, William Ruto leads in 8 out of the 11, and Raila Odinga leads in 3 out of the 11. Of course, let's now take a look at some of them so that you understand what is happening there. For instance, Nakuru County has a voter population of 1.05 million registered voters. William Ruto has an edge of 46% versus Raila Odinga's 24%, according to the Infotrack poll. Of course, this has been classified by Infotrack poll as a battleground. Another county is Narok County. William Ruto has 43%, of course, leading with a narrow margin. Raila Odinga has 42%, while the voter population there is 397,000. Away from Narok, we go to another county, which is Turkana County. Raila Odinga has 42% against William Ruto's 34%, and the voter population there should be 238,000, not 241. Another county near the coast is Kwale County. There it is. We have a voter population of 241,000, and Raila Odinga has 42% popularity. William Ruto has a 35% popularity, and of course that appears to be quite close. And of course we know that Azimio Umoja still has the headache in as far as determining the governorship race that has several candidates facing Kenya Kwanza's two. Tom, we have seen U.S. elections. The battlegrounds very well determine the race, the presidential race in America. In Kenya, do they? Should they?
No, they don't, and we can't really use that term. But just 2 points here. First of all, when we get to looking at the results of a national poll at the county level, we really have to know how many people were interviewed in each county and see what the statistical margin of error is in that county, because only then can we calculate whether one candidate is actually ahead of the other. But leaving that aside, because counties in Kenya are not electoral units at the presidential level, sure, you have to fulfill that second requirement to be declared the winner of having 25% in 24 counties. But when we have only 4 candidates, as you said, and only 2 serious ones, neither Raila Odinga nor William Ruto is going to have any trouble meeting that. So we can't point at particular counties and saying it's important to win, because counties in Kenya don't have votes that you can win and put in your basket as counties. Having said that, just to finish, we know there are some counties, starting with Nairobi, that are heavily populated. So every additional % of the vote that you can win will help you get towards your 50% plus 1, but we cannot talk about the 47 counties in Kenya as being potential or actual battlegrounds, because they are not actual units.
Right.
If the law said in order to become president, you actually have to win outright more than 50%, a certain number of counties, then we could talk about battlegrounds. But that's not in the election requirements, so we really don't have them in Kenya. So don't copy American terminology without defining it carefully.
Of course, the U.S. election has a different methodology. Now, to correct this, this should be 328,000 registered voters in Kwale County. Now, next week, this is on the road ahead. We know that next week on Wednesday, the 29th of June, IEBC is scheduled to meet the 4 presidential candidates and their representatives to iron out issues around IEBC's position that there will be no printed registers or register of voters at the polling stations to discuss the presidential election results path, among other issues. On Thursday, the 30th of June, we know that the Kenya Kwanza presidential campaign is expected to unveil its manifesto after dozens of economic forums and signing various charters with different interest groups. Now, both the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio Umoja teams are expected to intensify their campaigns across different parts of the country, and of course, including the other 2 presidential contenders from Agano Party and the Roots Party will also be on the trail doing different things to win the vote. And that is it for this week on the State of the Race. My name is Sam Gituku. See you next week. But for now, Sunday Live takes a break.